if I'm going to talk about this, okay, American government, this is Section 1, Chapter 1, Section 1, and we'll start off with the definition of government. Government itself is an institution by which a society makes and enforces its own public policies. Before we get into that, I guess we have to actually flip down to public policies to help with this. Public policies are anything that the actual government does. All right, so that's kind of confusing in a sense. But let's go back to this word, institution. Government itself is something that actually is a structure. People know where it is, what it looks like. Frustration many times for the government is where they're supposed to go and they don't know where to go. But by a society that society makes decisions about what their institution is going to look like. And they tell this institution to enforce all the things that society wants to do. All right, so the public policies themselves, there are many things like DMV for your license, all the way to making an army and waging war on other people. The type of action is whether it is to command that something is going to get done. So that's what a government does. It commands an action or prevents an action. And the action usually comes from one of three groups: executive, legislative, judicial. Okay, and these three you seriously need to know: to enforce laws, make laws, judge laws. So the executive basically has been handed by the legislative. They make some laws, they turn around, they give it to the president or whoever is running that particular country, who has to get their people to go out there and do something about that particular law. Stop other countries from fishing in their waters. Make sure that 16-year-olds are not driving drunk, whatever. And then after we go through this process, the judiciary usually gets involved in some way, shape, or form to say, did an individual actually break that law? Did a company break that law? How are we going to read the way the law is going to actually go? So, up here, we have the Constitution. A basic collection of laws setting out the principles, structures, and processes of an actual government. So what you actually have is that in the principles, well, what's the theory behind it? We're going to take care of the welfare of our citizens. We're going to defend our citizens. Those are all the kind of the principles. Structures. In our country, we set up a structure of a President of the United States, Congress of the United States, and a Supreme Court, actually, to judge the laws that Congress makes. But the Constitution also sets out the processes. How are politics, which means how is power actually distributed? So, who has the power to do what, when, how, and in what ways? And every country is a little bit different. In some ways, America's the first ones to come up with things. Like, we're the first people that created a president. The process in the Constitution is pretty vague about what the president can do. So over the last 200 years, what the president can do actually has kind of changed. The process, what the president can actually do, and what power he actually has. All right, so let's get into this. So governments usually have a constitution. All democracies, which we'll get there, do. Some dictatorships just throw it out. So most governments are either one of these two things. They're a dictatorship or they're democracy. Dictatorship, where one or more people are in charge, not responsible for the citizens, and this is important, basically means that they can do whatever they want, and are there repercussions? Sure. You could have a civil war and to take out the people or the person or the people that are actually trying to dictate everything. Some countries like their dictator and have them for 30 years. We're not built that way. We're called what's a democracy. Here, the people actually rule. And this basically means that we vote for people to run our government for us. We vote for the President of the United States. We vote for Congress. Okay? We do not vote for these guys, but they're chosen by the other two. So we have a hand in selecting the people that select our judges. Okay.